Now we are happy to have Zach Walker, our city manager, joining us for the State of the City address today. Zach completed a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and a Master's degree in Public Administration, both from University of Missouri. He began his career working as a legislative assistant in the Missouri House of Representatives and a regional planner at the Mid-Missouri Regional Planning Commission before transitioning to local government administration. Since that time, he served 4 years at the City of Kansas City, including roles in the Office of Management and Budget, as well as the Capital Projects Department. From there, he served 4 years as the management analyst for the City of Independence, a role he had until his appointment as Assistant City Manager in October 2015. Zach was appointed to the position of City Manager on October 1st, 2016. Please give Zach a warm welcome.
Thank you, Sansi. I don't know how you don't get excited about a 13-13 basketball team, Sansi. Let's go Tigers. There you go, ZOU. All right. Before I start today, I would like to once more recognize the tremendous leadership that I'm certainly fortunate to get to work with every day, and that's our Mayor, Eileen Weir, Council members Scott Robertson and Karen DeLucy, and our other council members who aren't able to be here today. But these are the men and women who step forward to lead our community, to put themselves at the front, and I would like to recognize and thank them for their service. So thanks again to the Chamber for the opportunity to visit with you and speak with you today. At last week's Chamber of Commerce Board meeting, outgoing board member Whitney Watson gave us all a copy of Zig Ziglar's little book of big quotes. And I found this quote to be particularly fitting for our present times. Sometimes adversity is what you need to face in order to become successful. Exactly 365 days ago, I addressed this gathering, and friends, we have certainly faced our fair share of adversity in the last 12 months, haven't we? Several high-profile initiatives have either been delayed or defeated. We strive to provide world-class municipal services against a budgetary backdrop in which our expenses rise by 2.5% every year, but our revenues grow by less than 1% in the same year. There's a steady stream of vitriolic rhetoric aimed at City Hall on a daily basis, and most harrowing of all, we carry a collectively heavy heart as we continue to mourn the loss of one of our own, Independence Police Sergeant Jason Young. It would be impractical to revisit every challenge, every setback, every hard-fought battle from the last year, but suffice it to say, it has been a challenging 12 months. And though they pale in comparison, the turbulent times which we face remind me of some of those faced by President Abraham Lincoln. When considering the trials and tensions he would endure those first few weeks as president, he would confess to a friend, "They were so great that could I have anticipated them, I would not believe it possible to have survived them." And yet, here we are. Not only have we survived, but by almost any standard, we continue to thrive. How, you ask? Start with our strategic plan, Independence for All. We remain right on schedule to deliver upon the promises made in this groundbreaking plan. 3 years after its adoption by the City Council, we've completed almost 60% of the strategies outlined. In the past year alone, we've adopted an economic development incentives policy to guide our decision-making. We've continued implementing advancements in technology and innovation to more efficiently and effectively deliver city services. And we've adopted a 6% rate increase for our customers at Independence Power and Light. But the raw data in and of itself doesn't tell the whole story. We've built something more powerful: hope. Consider the words of 2019 Time Magazine Person of the Year, Greta Thunberg. Right now, we are desperate for any sign of hope. Well, I'm telling you, there is hope. I have seen it, but it does not come from the government or corporations. It comes from the people who have been unaware but are now starting to wake up. And once we become aware, we change. People can change. People are ready for change. And that is the hope, because we have democracy And democracy is happening every hour, not just on election day, but every second and every hour. In fact, every great change throughout history came from the people. We do not have to wait. We can start the change right now. We, the people. All around this city, meaningful change is occurring. Hope is being built. Lives are being changed. We have hope today because of people like Linda Pringle and Mark McDonald. Linda and Mark were part of an extraordinary group of citizens who recognized the need to pass the use tax to help fund basic services in this city. Theirs was not an easy task. Just 14 months earlier, 62% of independent voters had said no to this very idea. Undeterred, these community advocates, under the guidance of Mayor Weir and the council, lobbied the city to put Proposition P on the ballot, then labored tirelessly to convince their fellow residents of the critical need to support pets and police. This time, 56% of the voters said yes, and now our police force will grow by 30 new officers, and the city-run animal shelter will have the resources necessary to continue operating as a no-kill facility. Linda and Mark and your team, thank you for showing us all what unwavering faith and vision can produce. We have hope today because of people like Bob Sorensen. Bob has become one of the most unlikely friends I have ever made. As the Independence Examiner reported, City Manager Zach Walker caused an uproar, but a needed debate when in early summer he presented a city budget that included changes to city retirees' health care plans. What kind of uproar? Well, hot summer nights for us at the city meant throngs of retirees protesting outside City Hall, a hearse that read retiree health insurance, and a sign depicting sweet old me throwing an elderly woman over a cliff, wheelchair and all. A peaceful solution seemed uncertain. City staff, led by Assistant City Manager Adam Norris, sat down with retirees led by Bob to look at the needs and the options. The two sides talked, acknowledging the need for savings and the desire to maintain good health coverage. We worked it out. Retirees unanimously approved a plan to save the city $3.5 million a year, and the City Council unanimously approved it too. Thank you, Bob, for showing us all what meaningful dialogue can produce. And we have hope today because of people like Monty Short. Monty and a dedicated group of activists are working to revitalize the Inglewood Arts District and the surrounding neighborhood. Any given day, stop by the front table at Vivalor and you will find Monty and other committed volunteers hosting a lunch, maybe even a dinner meeting on the same day. This table has become a veritable force of experts in housing, development, finance, and planning. The group does more than just feast and wax theoretical. They have canvassed block after block to create housing inventories to better understand the needs of the area and determine which resources will best attract new investment. The group's established a community improvement district to create a dedicated funding source for improvements in the Arts District. Finally, the group has acquired the former Comprehensive Mental Health Services building on Winter Road with the intent to create artist workspace and display space. Thank you, Monty, for showing us what a little bit of elbow grease and tenacity can produce. The hope that these citizens represent provides the very foundation upon which our success as a city will continue to be built. A recent editorial in the Philadelphia Inquirer suggested the following: "It is a dark time in America. We must find a way to bring in the light. In a time of hate, divisiveness, and vulnerability for many Americans, turning the tide requires a commitment from as many individuals as possible to push back against these dark forces in their daily actions and to share a sense of responsibility for one another. The personal responsibility that will outshine the darkness of these bleak days is the one that President John F. Kennedy referred to in his inaugural address when he implored Americans to ask not what their country can do for them, but what they can do for their country. In the examples I highlighted today, citizens embraced this personal responsibility. They identified a problem, and they had hope for a better outcome. But here's the key. They acted on that hope to create a bridge between the present state of affairs and the hope they saw for a better tomorrow. In local government, we build bridges. We create connections. Inspired by the bridges our citizens are building, we will be building bridges throughout the city over the next year. First, there are the literal bridges we build and maintain. In the year ahead, you can expect to see our city addressing a number of infrastructure issues, particularly with bridges. There's the bridge replacement in the area of 24 Highway and Best Truman Parkway. Estimated to be completed this summer, the project will increase the visibility and access to the renovated Truman Library with an improved bridge and walking trail. It's part of a larger focus in the 24 Highway corridor, including a complete streets program and the Truman Connected Trail, with a total investment of more than $16 million. Additionally, we are making a major step toward addressing our $27.5 million backlog of deferred maintenance in our streets, curbs, sidewalks, and yes, our bridges. This past December, the City Council approved an $18 million bond program to tackle this backlog, including funding to address the maintenance, major repairs, or complete replacement of over 50 bridges in this city. Second, we will build bridges in 2020 to close the digital equity divide. A community that wants to participate in the 21st century must have access to 21st century telecommunications infrastructure. Businesses need this service to grow and thrive, and children need it to keep up with their educational responsibilities. In 2020, reliable high-speed internet should no longer be a luxury. It should be a right. That means fiber optics, providing regardless of your income or your zip code. But fiber networks are expensive. Therefore, it appears unlikely that incumbent providers will build fiber to the home on their own at an affordable price anytime in the foreseeable future. The economics are simply not feasible for these companies to invest the hundreds of millions of dollars needed in a single community. Broadband can play an essential role in this community's future growth and success, but many questions remain. To provide the city with the information and tools it needs to improve broadband, I am calling on the Chamber of Commerce's Broadband Committee to launch a community feasibility study. Third, we will continue to build bridges to all corners of our community to ensure a better quality of life for each of our residents. Much has been done in this area, and that deserves to be celebrated. From improving the safety of our neighborhoods with the police department's street crimes unit, to establishing a new property tax abatement program in Southwest Independence designed to incentivize home repairs, and even the multi-million-dollar renovation of the Independence Event Center, we are making generational changes to the landscape of our community. There are two areas in particular, however, where our focus is needed more than ever. The first quality of life issue we must bridge is transit. To balance our budget last year, service reductions were made to our Indy bus system. For many, this may have been hardly noticed. We're privileged to have access to our own personal vehicles and to freely commute to our jobs or carry out our business. Others in our community are not so fortunate. Each morning, I walk the dog and I see many of the same faces. I used to regularly see one of our fellow residents on his way to catch the intra-city transit system to downtown Kansas City. Since these cuts went into effect in January, I haven't seen him. Maybe he moved. But I fear something worse. I fear his life has gotten remarkably harder, and I fear he must now leave earlier and walk farther to access public transit if he's to get to his job on time. I don't have to tell a room full of business people how important workforce development is to a strong community, but it will take our collective effort to make public transit a priority in order to ensure each citizen has reliable and convenient access to transit if we are to make meaningful progress in bridging this gap. The second quality of life issue we must bridge is housing. The nation is in the grips of an affordable housing crisis. where a severe shortage of homes for working class and low-income families is pushing home prices and rents up across the country. For independents, the problem looks a little bit different. While we have plenty of affordable housing, the quality of our housing stock suffers. In a recent City Council study session, Christina Leakey from the Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity shared that her organization, mostly known for building homes, has shifted its focus toward basic but necessary repairs to existing homes to keep people in stable housing. In fact, they've had to stop their waiting list that at one point grew to 175 families. The solutions to this housing crisis will be localized and must involve input from our citizens about what they are willing to support. Last year, our submitted budget included funding for a housing study. This study would not only help inform our understanding of the national housing crisis at the local level, but would also identify strategies to help target new housing construction and preservation of quality, affordable housing. Unfortunately, our aforementioned budget woes meant this initiative was eliminated, but as we look to secure funding for this study in the coming year, I look forward to the work of the Chamber's Housing and Safe Neighborhoods Committee to identify recommendations to begin addressing this critical issue. Before I leave this issue of quality housing and transit, I would be remiss if I did not once more mention the residents of the 64053 zip code. Last year, I shared with you data that indicated the wide disparity between our city's most affluent zip code and the least affluent. If you'll recall, one of the more disturbing disparities between these two zip codes came in life expectancy, where people in the 64053 zip code lived on average 10 years less than people in 64057. I fear we haven't done enough to close the gap in the last year. As evidence, our city staff has recently been working on a housing issue at a residence on Hardy Avenue in the 64053 zip code. The property has been declared unsafe to occupy, meaning this family has been displaced from their home. During a ride-along with our police department, I was able to visit the family's new home. It's under the bridge at East 9th Street and Ash Avenue. There are many functional uses for a bridge. A home should not be one of them. It would be easy to neglect this issue, and in fact, that was suggested to me by one individual. I've lived here my entire life, this person told me. That part of town has always been a pit. It will always be a pit. If you want to do something meaningful, put a fence around it. Friends, we do not build fences, we build bridges. As President Lyndon Johnson said, if our efforts continue, and if our will is strong, and if our hearts are right, and if our courage remains constant, then I am confident we shall overcome. This year, we have an immediate opportunity in front of us to shape our community's access to federal funding and support for issues like housing through the 2020 census. I hope all of you will help us in this important effort to ensure our community is accurately reflected in the data they gather. Fourth, we owe it to ourselves and to future generations to continue building the never-ending bridge laid out in our federal Constitution, that toward a more perfect union. In the words of United States Supreme Court Justice John Roberts, every generation has an obligation to pass to the next a responsive government, responsive to the needs of the people, but also the tools to understand and to improve it. In order to keep building the bridge and to pass on the tools of a responsive government, our community must have a modern-day city charter. While many cities across the nation have a charter that calls for a mandatory review on a regular basis, our charter does not. As a result, our charter has become antiquated in many ways. There are some portions of our charter, in fact, that have been declared unconstitutional as a result of case law. Other aspects of our charter limit our ability to adapt to the needs of a 21st century community. It is imperative to our continued progress that this foundational governing document be reviewed and modernized, and I am asking for the civic community's support to make this a priority and press for a city charter review commission. Finally, let us continue building bridges that connect every corner of our city, our region, and even our nation to one of our greatest and most unique assets, the historic Independence Square. It has been said that perhaps no town square in America has played such an integral role in shaping American history. Perhaps best of all, not much has changed, said President Truman's nephew, David Wallace. Whenever I return to this town, I am always struck by how little has changed from the days when Harry S. Truman used to stroll its maple-shaded sidewalks. The city's old center, with its gingerbread Victorian homes and traditional town square, seems as if it's been preserved in amber. It's a place where the 33rd president's presence is still very much alive. While the feel of the city's old center has been preserved in amber, the public infrastructure certainly has not. Crumbling curbs and sidewalks, aging water and sewer lines, and a dearth of vegetation limit the appeal of our square when compared to other downtown settings, such as Lee's Summit. That is why the Downtown Redevelopment Coordinating Committee made a square beautification project a priority in their October 2018 report. And that is why the Independence on a Roll Committee has continued to press this project forward. As a result, city staff are in the throes of project design and bid preparation. And pending City Council approval, a $3 million square revitalization project can begin in the spring of 2021 with final completion later that year. The Independence Square, it's an iconic part of our city, and the revitalization is growing stronger with each passing day. To sustain this momentum, we must continue to open the doors to as many people as possible and keep our city's heartbeat strong. After all, the mission statement of Independence for All says in part to transform our community through engagement. Transformational engagement must include building bridges not just within our community, but to connect with the farthest reaches possible. This past fall, I participated in the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Exchange trip. It was an excellent opportunity to build new bridges. One of the many bridges I made was with Mr. Danny Beckley, Executive Director of the Kansas City Symphony. It may seem strange that I would make a powerful connection with someone from the symphony. After all, I'm from Trenton. We have two kinds of music, country and Western. Looking at you, Steve Patton. But the arts build a powerful bridge of their own. Danny and I continued our conversation when we returned home. And the more we spoke, the more we realized we both had powerful tools that, if combined, could create a transformational bridge. He with the symphony, I with the square. Like the citizens I highlighted earlier, we didn't wait or seek permission. We didn't let the cynicism or skepticism of the current era deter us. We simply worked toward our mutual goals. As a result, I am pleased to publicly announce here for the first time today that on June 9th, 2021, the Kansas City Symphony will host an event we call Symphony on the Square, and we invite people from far and wide to hear world-class music in a historic and beautiful setting. "2019 was a year filled with its fair share of challenges, but it was also a year of tremendous accomplishments for this city. Our mayor and city council continue to chart a course toward an independence for all, and our city staff works earnestly to deliver world-class municipal services for our community. But ultimately, hope for a better tomorrow comes not from within City Hall, but from the people we serve. And though the challenges that we face are vastly different than those faced by President Lincoln all those years ago, the answer to any dilemma we face is remarkably the same. It is the duty that comes with citizenship. I appeal to you to constantly bear in mind," Lincoln said, "that with you, not with the politicians, not with the executives, not with the office seekers, is the question, shall the Union and shall the liberties of this country be preserved to the last generation? I look forward to working with each of you in the year ahead to build our bridges, to connect every part of our community, and to ensure an even better independence for all. Thank you."